Welcome to Clued in Mystery. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brooke, and we both love mystery.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Sarah. It's so good to be talking with you again about mysteries.
I know I've said it before and you've said it as well. This is the kind of best time of the week for both of us.
Absolutely.
So, when I say culinary mysteries, Brooke, what kind of mystery do you think about?
My mind goes to like those 1980s and 90s where that really kicked off the cozy culinary.
Me too. And until I started researching, I thought that's where it started. Diane Mott Davidson, author of one of the first series of cozy mysteries featuring a caterer, was inspired to focus on food by Robert B. Parker's writing, in which his private detective sleuth Spenser, who was introduced in 1973, makes multiple references to food. Her first book, Catering to Nobody, came out in 1990. Catherine Hall Page, whose sleuth is also a caterer, also released her first book in 1990. Page was named this year's Mystery Writers of America Grand Master, which I think speaks to the influence of culinary mysteries on the genre. One of the features of culinary mysteries is the recipes. Both Catherine Hall Page and Diane Mott Davidson feature recipes in their books, but their books weren't the first to do this. Rex Stout's 1938 book, Too Many Cooks, sees Nero Wolfe attending a retreat of celebrated chefs, and at least one edition features recipes, although the ebook version that I've read for this episode didn't include any. A quick search reveals so many titles under this umbrella, so I think, Brooke, we should just get started talking about culinary mysteries in which chefs and caterers stumble upon victims and solve mysteries behind their deaths.
Yes, thanks for that summary, Sarah. It is a much bigger subgenre than I had first realized. And obviously I had my dates wrong because the ones you mentioned that where my mind instantly went to were 1990s, not 1980s. And in fact, I would say the very first cozy mystery and definitely the first culinary mystery I ever read was a Diane Mott Davidson.
I actually thought that Joanne Fluke had started writing around the same time, but her Hannah Swenson series only started in 2001.
Hmm. Interesting.
Her books also include recipes, and I actually learned a little bit about baking cookies, even though I have been the cookie baker in my house since I was about 13. My mom said, "You eat too many cookies. If you want more, you have to make them yourself."
Ooh, that was a great way to inspire a young baker. I did think of you in that way because I know that you enjoy baking. You talk about baking quite often, and so I thought of you reading one of your culinary mysteries with a batch of cookies or muffins in the oven, and that was just a great visual for me. And in fact, I think that is part of what makes these so enticing is that beyond other survival things like family and sleep and love, food is something we all must have. Everybody eats.
Exactly. And food and drink have played a role in mysteries for, almost since the beginning, right?
Mhm.
They are excellent vehicles for poison.
Mhm.
And we know that Agatha Christie, loved poison, and often it was in the food. And, I can think of at least one Poirot short story. It's the mystery of the Christmas pudding, I think, where there's, food plays a role. And, you think of Ariadne Oliver, you associate her with apples.
Mhm.
And that's a great way to create a character that people remember, right? Is through that association with food.
Absolutely. And I think that, as you said, many of those use the food as a way to get the poison to the right person because poisoning is such a great amateur sleuth setup because, you have everyday people, not only as the murderer, because they can access these toxins and get them into food, but then a way for an amateur sleuth to then solve that murder. Food just works really well in that way.
I agree. And someone who works in the food service industry, right? If you're a caterer, lots of reason for you to be encountering different people and be in different homes.
Hmm.
And, maybe you have to stretch to figure out why you might be searching through the study, but certainly gives you access to speak to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great point. Diane Mott Davidson, actually, I read a short interview online from her, and she said that the people who hire caterers often will share secrets and, discuss things behind the scenes because they're just discounting, or she said they think caterers are deaf, but we know what she means. They discount them. They think that they're sort of invisible. And so these behind the scenes people, which we see in a lot of different ways, the help gets discounted and then can learn some secret tidbits. But I will say I worked for a caterer one summer between college years, and I did not learn any juicy secrets or solve any murders, Sarah.
Oh, that's so disappointing, Brooke. I was really hoping that you were going to share.
That it was my beginning of an amateur sleuth career. It didn't
Exactly.
it didn't work out for me. It's said that Dorothy L. Sayers' Strong Poison might be the first mystery to include a detailed recipe within the story. And it happens in the courtroom scene. The judge recites the ingredients and the process for making the omelet, which the victim ate just prior to their death. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit that we go clear back to the Golden Age. Speaking of Nero Wolfe, he actually did a publicity tour where he gave away a recipe tin. Did you hear about that, Sarah?
I read about this, yeah, when I was researching for today.
I think that's so fun. And apparently, the little recipe box, I think you got 12 recipes if you bought the book. Um, they're actually worth more today, like $3,700 than the first edition of the book.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes, some early swag.
Exactly. Well, and I think that would be actually a really neat way to promote your book, right? If you were skilled in the kitchen to say, as part of a book tour, I'm going to cook a meal for 10 lucky readers. And can you just not imagine the excitement if you got to sit down and eat something that Catherine Hall Page had cooked?
I love that idea. And even if it'd be fantastic if it was one of these top chefs that was also an author, but even just somebody like, Diane Mott Davidson, if they were to say, we're going to do this event and you can come and you can experience some of these iconic recipes from the catering series, and, an entire world there can be built out and experience it with other people who also love culinary mysteries, I could just see that would be a lot of fun.
I think I've seen videos of Ellie Alexander showing how to prepare some of the recipes that are in her books.
Yeah, she's a great example of an author who really does interact with her fans a lot and create events or activities for them to partake in the world of the bake shop mysteries. I actually read another Ellie Alexander this week, preparing for the show, and she not only in real life but also in the stories really builds out that world.
I am going to have to read an Ellie Alexander book. Maybe I'll put it on my winter reading list because you've brought her up several times, and I know she's got a number of different series. So I'm sure I'll love it. I just need to choose one.
Yeah, and several of the series revolve around food and drink. So culinary mysteries.
So, one of the kind of spin-offs that we can see with these kinds of mysteries is cookbooks, collections of the recipes that have been published with the books, either published on their websites or published as actual recipes, because I think people do follow
Mhm.
those recipes.
Yeah, there's a big draw for these books that not only is the storyline surrounding the world of food, but then the recipes appear within the story. So you can kind of feel like you're part of the world. You can try the recipe.
Mhm, mhm, and I don't know if it's the opposite of that, but, there is a series of books where Julia Child, who is a famous cook and cookbook author, her friend is the sleuth, but Julia Child is kind of part of the investigation. And that series starts with Mastering the Art of French Murder, which is a play on the title of Child's first cookbook. And that's written by Colleen Cambridge, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that book.
Yeah, I have not read that yet, but I love the idea, as I've said before in other subgenres, of using real people from history as a way to, create a better sense of the world and make you feel like it might be real. I was interested to learn from a Crime Reads article that cookbooks were compiled. There's Dining with Sherlock Holmes from 1976, the Peter Wimsey cookbook from 1981, and the Nero Wolfe cookbook from 1973. And these were compiled by, not the authors, but other people who were interested in the recipes and the storylines that incorporated them, and then compiled them into cookbooks. And I had never learned that before.
Oh, that's so fun. And I mean, as you say, food is something that is universal, right? We all need to eat. And to, recreate um, some of the meals or some of the dishes that are mentioned in some of these books, because Peter Wimsey is another great example of one of those characters who certainly appreciated good food,
Hmm.
and to be able to recreate some of that, and it's almost as if that character's at the table with you.
Right. When I read that article, I was reminded of a friend that I had many years ago. She's still a friend, but I learned this about her many years ago, that she would go to the library and check out cookbooks, just like you and I might go and check out some fiction. And without, any grand intention of cooking the recipes necessarily, but she just loved to read the recipes. Many times those books have beautiful pictures of food.
Hmm.
And so she would enjoy a recipe book like a magazine or something, and, read the recipes. And I imagined that people who then would check out these books or buy these books about Sherlock Holmes recipes or Peter Wimsey, then it adds just an entirely new level. The food can be enjoyed, but then you have this entire fictional world that you can place it in. So just a really neat uh, addition to those fictional worlds.
Oh, that's really fun. One subgenre of this subgenre would be people who actually have experience as being chefs or caterers or bakers, writing these mysteries. So I know that Anthony Bourdain published a couple of mysteries that are set in restaurants, the high intensity, high emotion setting that would be. And Orlando Murrin, who is a chef, cookbook author. He was a semifinalist on a cooking show, and he writes for the BBC. He published a book, I think it was earlier this year, called Knife Skills for Beginners. And his sleuth is a professional chef who actually is filling in for someone else at a cooking school, right? A week long retreat at a cooking school. And again, this is a really great setup for a rotating cast of characters, right?
Mhm.
Because you've got different people from different backgrounds who've decided that they want to have this intense week of improving their culinary skills. And so it enables the sleuth to meet all of these different people. And of course, there's a death, and so he gets to investigate it as well.
That's just fantastic to have that real world experience. And it is very high pressure, isn't it? Like sometimes when you learn what really goes on behind the scenes in one of those, top kitchens, it's very stressful, almost a drill sergeant like leader. And yeah, I love the idea of those people that have really experienced it writing the story.
Well, it just brings some authenticity, right? And we've talked before about physicians writing medical mysteries or lawyers
Hmm.
writing legal mysteries. So it makes sense that people with culinary backgrounds are writing culinary mysteries. I know, we've been talking about kind of the early culinary mysteries, but there have been a few released in the last decade or so that have been quite popular. So I think of Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala, or Auntie Lee's Delights, and that series set in Singapore by Ovidia Yu. Um, in both of those examples, it's not only food that plays a big part in the mystery and the story, but also family.
Well, it's funny you should say that because when you started talking about these more contemporary recent series, the first one that came to mind for me was Abby Colette's Ice Cream Parlor mystery series. And it's similar. The sleuth returns back to the town where her family had always had an ice cream parlor, and now it's her turn to operate the shop. And, mysteries ensue. But I think the connection with family and food is just natural, isn't it?
Absolutely, because you're often enjoying a meal with friends or family, right? It's one of those pleasures that we have.
Hmm. And then it gets that group together, and you don't know what kind of conflicts might erupt.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that kind of extended family setting can lead to some great conflicts.
So, Sarah, have you ever tried a recipe from a culinary mystery?
I haven't, although my son and I were reading a book that he had borrowed from the library, and it was called Dee Dee Dodo Future Spy. And uh, it features a dodo who wants to become a spy, and his companion is a chef, a dodo who is a chef. And in it, there is a recipe for, I think they make cookies, and they have this secret ingredient in the cookies. Um, it wasn't a recipe that I was going to follow, but my son thought I should take a picture of it. Uh, it was, I think, pickle juice was the key ingredient, and I just don't think that that belongs in cookies.
Okay, first of all, I think it's very cute that he wanted you to document this recipe because you are the cookie baker, as you said.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure about pickle juice in a cookie.
I did think it was really interesting that culinary mysteries are something that we see also in mysteries for younger readers. And it was quite unintentional that he had chosen this book. And as we were reading it out, I knew that we were going to be doing this episode. And I thought, oh my goodness, like this is incredible. Um, and the fact that there's a recipe in that, I thought was really, really interesting.
That is interesting.
What about you, Brooke? Have you tried any recipes from a culinary mystery?
Well, I actually have some recipes in my own series. I would not by any stretch of the imagination say that these are culinary mysteries, but I feel like they're a little bonus. So if I refer to Grandma Lily's baking a certain kind of cake, then many times either my newsletter subscribers or just in the back of the book, I'll include the recipe.
Well, Brooke, I'm going to have to try one of the recipes from your books now.
That would be lovely. I would love to have the cookie baker bake one of my recipes.
Brooke, I've really enjoyed talking about food and mysteries today with you.
It's been a lot of fun, Sarah. But for today, thank you for joining us on Clued in Mystery. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Sarah, and we both love mystery. Clued In Mystery is written and produced by Brooke Peterson and Sarah M. Stephen. Music is by Shane Ivers. If you liked what you heard, please consider telling a friend, leaving a review, or subscribing with your favorite podcast listening app. Visit our website at cluedinmystery.com to sign up for our newsletter, The Clued In Chronicle, or to join our paid membership, The Clued In Cartel. We're on social media at Clued In Mystery.